Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives from the world's leading global brands. Today we have a special show here on LinkedIn Live for you. We have a workshop. We're going to be joined by Sonali Satpathy, who's the Vice President of Diversity, Inclusion and Wellbeing at Schneider Electric. Welcome to the show, Sonali. How are you?
Thanks. Very well. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Enjoying the sun outside as much as I can get outside, that is, as possible. How about you?
Same here. The sun's not really out today, but the weather's beautiful. And I'm here with you. So very excited. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks for joining us. Before we jump in, tell everyone a little bit about yourself personally and your journey to where we are today.
All right. So who am I? It's always quite an existential question.
I know. Tell me more.
And more so these days. So like I said, I'm Sonali Satpathy. I'm the Vice President for Diversity, Inclusion and Wellbeing at Schneider Electric. I'm based in Boston in the US, and I've been here for 3 years. I joined Schneider 10 years ago in Paris in an internal communications role. I was there doing an MBA. And very soon moved on to different roles, moved to Hong Kong to do a talent management role, leadership pipeline and programs, stayed in Hong Kong for 5 years and then moved to the US 3 years ago to take on the diversity and inclusion role and added well-being to my portfolio about a year ago. So that's me, I guess, from a work perspective. I'm Indian, as you might have guessed. I was born and brought up in India, did my schooling, my college there, and in fact, the first 10 years of my career was in the broadcast news industry in India before I went to Paris to do an MBA and my Schneider journey. On the personal front, I'm married. I have a 1-year-old baby. And I can't say that life during this COVID crisis, we are still in lockdown, is very different for me because my husband's an artist and kind of practices social distancing as an art form. And as you also have an 18-month-old, babies don't leave much time for socializing. So that's me and my personal journey so far.
Yeah. How did the D&I element to your career come to life? Was it something you pursued, or did the opportunity present itself? Did a leader in the team say, Sonali, I think this would be a great role for you? How did that come to life?
No, it didn't quite happen like that. I was doing my talent management role and in fact was tasked with kind of finding the new D&I leader. It was, and I was always very interested in the topic, and since the role reported into my then boss too, I just raised my hand for the role. I said, I'm personally quite interested in the topic and would like to do it. Mm-hmm. And then, there was a bit of a surprise element, and she reflected, we had some conversations, and then we went ahead and I got the role.
Wow. Well, congratulations. What a cool story. So you were tasked with finding the person for the role, and now you have the role. So pretty interesting. Was well-being part of that at the same time? Did you lose me there for a second?
No, it wasn't actually. So it was like a core D&I role, and the well-being piece actually was with another person in the organization. And we as teams, so the diversity inclusion teams and well-being teams, collaborated quite a lot of our topics, and you'll see that when I present were, quite the same. So whether we were talking about inclusion and the impact on employee well-being was feeding into inclusion, and whether we talked about flexibility at work from a well-being perspective or from an inclusion perspective, we were coming together quite a lot as teams, even before I took on the topic. And then organizations shape, change, people move on. And then the opportunity came where we felt that getting the two teams together under one umbrella would actually be quite useful. And more as I work on both the topics and the teams work together, we see that there's so many points in common, and it's really becoming quite effective to have, both those things underneath one umbrella.
Yeah, well, the current circumstances have highlighted that now more than ever.
Exactly.
Right? Where, we surveyed our leaders a few weeks ago. No surprise that the number one thing on their agenda was well-being.
Exactly.
So it makes complete sense as well. And it's just, it was always there as a priority for everyone, always there. But now we're really seeing it play out and the impact that work's having and continues to happen as well. So really appreciate you coming on to share more about the work you're doing, your insights. Let's jump straight into the presentation. If you want to share your screen, Ivan will bring that up. The moment of truth.
Okay, I'm trying to go full screen. Yeah, there.
I can't see it shared on our end. On if you click on the share screen on the bottom middle of StreamYard, can you see that on StreamYard?
Yes. All right.
It's all right. There we go. Yep, perfect. And there we go. And if you go full screen inside the presentation,
Yes, I have.
There we go. All right, it's just taking a few seconds. There we go. We can see it perfectly. You look perfect. Everything's great. Fantastic. Well, I'll hand over to you. And throughout the session, I'll sort of keep an eye. If everyone listening, if you have any questions throughout the show, I'll be keeping an eye on the LinkedIn chat as well. And where relevant, I'm happy to ask Sonali. But I'll hand over to you, Sonali, for now.
Excellent, thank you. So I guess I have about 30 minutes for this, and just give me a shout out if you feel I'm going over time. Just before I jump into the meat of the conversation, I would like to introduce Schneider Electric and our purpose, which is really to empower all to make the most of their energy and resources, ensuring life is on everywhere for everyone at every moment. We believe that access to energy and digital is a basic human right. And because we work in over 100 countries, we know that life is on when people have the access to the right to access to energy. And in the 21st century, that also means having access to digital. And this really is the foundation of progress, whether you're in the education sector, in healthcare, or in any form of commerce. So what is it that we do? We are a growing technology company that provides energy and automation digital solutions for efficiency and sustainability to customers worldwide, with a very strong focus on innovation. As you can see, we are a very well-balanced company geographically. We have over 135,000 employees in over 100 countries, and we serve our customers across two businesses of energy management and industrial automation in 4 growing end markets: buildings, data centers, industry, and automation. So as you can see, the revenues also are very well distributed. 29% of our revenues come from North America and Asia Pacific, 26% from Western Europe, and 16% from rest of the world. And 45% of these revenues are really from the new economies. And just to give you a glimpse of how digital we are already, 50% of these revenues come from either connected products, edge controls, software services, or different forms of AI. So that's who we are as Schneider Electric. And today, as Chris said earlier, my presentation is really going to be around 3 parts. One, I will take you over our diversity and inclusion transformation. So really the journey so far, our strategy and the impact that we've been having, and really then focus on how we are looking at flexibility as a way of driving inclusion and well-being at Schneider Electric. And then a bit of a kind of a deep dive into a case study which started before the COVID crisis, was really a shift in the way we worked, and we called it the new and smarter ways of working, and how we are having to adapt some of that thinking in the new normal. And of course, we have more questions than answers today. So really about what this new normal of work will look like. So I'll start with the first bit of the presentation, which is really about what a diversity and inclusion strategy and ambition is at Schneider. And really our D&I ambition is to provide equal opportunities to everyone everywhere, and to ensure that all employees feel uniquely valued and safe to contribute their best. And I really like to take some time to go over this with you, because there are 3 key elements to this ambition, and it really shapes what we do at Schneider Electric from a D&I perspective. The first is really about this equal opportunities to everyone everywhere. And this is really about creating that level playing field for everyone at Schneider, no matter who they are and what they come from. And this we do through various policies, programs, and initiatives that we have. The second piece is around uniquely valued, and this is really acknowledging the diversity that we have and how different and unique we all are, no matter, we could be two women from India, but we could be really very different, because really it's about who we are and what our unique needs and challenges are. And we as an organization, both acknowledging that and then facilitating how I need to work within those parameters. And the third piece is really safe, and here this refers to the whole psychologically safe piece, where we really want to create an environment where people feel that they can bring their true selves to work and feel that sense of belonging at Schneider Electric. So this is our ambition, and each of these elements really guide us in shaping all the programs, policies, initiatives that we run from a D&I perspective. Our journey in D&I has been, let's say, quite a long one, and this is what I usually share with my peers when we really exchange best practices, is that it is a journey. Yeah, this is a topic where you don't see results immediately, and it's really about moving in the right direction and building that specific culture over a period of time. Our CEO and chairman, Jean-Pascal Tricoire, is a strong advocate, champion, and he's really been at the forefront of driving our D&I journey, and very much so from the beginning of it. So really we started with a diversity policy with a strong focus on gender diversity way back in 2006. And over the years, we've added elements and really grown from a very strong gender focus to really talking more about inclusion, equity, and now really looking to about how we want to be, much more inclusive, both from a business perspective and sustainability in the new normal. Along the journey, of course, we've made strides in the way we partnered with some organizations, whether it was the UN He for She or signing up with different bodies like the Free and Equal and the United Nations Women's Empowerment Principles. And you will see that this was a very deliberate part of our strategy as I just go into how we've kind of shaped the strategy for us around these 4 pillars. So, starting with that ambition of really providing that equal opportunity framework, we decided a strategy around 4 pillars. The first is about empower diversities. And here, this is really truly about the representation piece. So globally, we focus on 5 diversities, so as to speak, and this is what we call gender, generation, nationality, our LGBT+ community, and people with disabilities. Inclusive practices is really about putting into place concrete policies, frameworks that can really embed inclusion into the what and how of people processes, and making sure that all our processes, whether it's from talent acquisition to talent management to our rewards, are really bias-free, and we are making sure that people are being given that level playing field, no matter who they are. Inclusive behaviors really refers to the culture and mindset piece, because you can have the best of policies and you can have, try and attract, a diverse population to your organization. But it's really the everyday behaviors, whether from a managerial perspective or also from leaders or peer-to-peer, where those microaggressions are not come up. And it's really about making sure that you have the culture to support that diversity. Advocacy was not a very strong suit for us, but 3 years ago, we really took a strong stake in the ground, and we said we have to go out and really talk more about the work that we are doing at Schneider Electric. We might not be perfect, but we are doing good work, and also partnering more and more with organizations to really both get that outside in knowledge, but also then be able to showcase some of the efforts that we are driving. And we also figured that once you make very strong public commitments, you kind of make them happen within the organization. You get the force behind some of these initiatives. So how diverse are we? And we look at this from the lens of the 5 diversities I just mentioned. So when I look at gender today, overall for the Schneider Electric workforce, we are 33% women and 41% at entry. It's not reflected here, but today 35% of our executive committee is women and 42% of our board. And I can tell you that it's just not happened. This was a very intentional focus where we've had, strong focus on making sure that our leadership was also reflecting the gender diversity that we wanted. Of course, we have long strides to make. We still have, middle management, which is predominantly male, and we really need more female managers in the organization. From what we call a nationality perspective, our people footprint follows our business footprint. So this is something that we've had quite a strong focus on, that our leadership and our people should follow a kind of our revenue footprint. And today it is quite in line with that, with 55% of our employee population coming from the new economies. Today we have 4 generations working side by side at Schneider. The millennials and Gen X are forming the large part of our population. And today we are questioning ourselves on things like, how do we make this multi-generational mix work? As we have the need to attract more and more early career talent to the organization, how do we ensure that our senior talent, is still feeling recognized and part of the Schneider Electric journey? So questions we are asking ourselves and putting into place policies and programs to look after that. For both the LGBT plus community and people with disabilities, we've had a very strong focus over the last couple of years just to make sure that, ensure that both these populations, again, feel included in the Schneider Electric journey, both in terms of providing the right level of accessibility for people with disabilities, and making sure that globally we were making a commitment to our LGBT plus community, that Schneider Electric really stood up for both the rights of this population and ensured that we were providing fairness and equity within the company for this community. But we do have, I would say, progress to make on both those fronts. So just in terms of how this has panned out, and this is just one slide showing some of the recognition and awards and indices that we were part of last year. And it has been quite heartening to see this, because at the global level, we were recognized quite well. We were winners of the 2019 Catalyst Award for our work in India. We are part of the Bloomberg Gender Equality Index, and the different indices you see there, whether FT, Leader in Diversity, or Equally. But also at the same time, a lot of country-driven recognition. And, for those of you who are practitioners of the topic, that this topic really comes to life at the country level. So getting recognized in the US and India and France and most of the big territories, for some of the work that these countries have been driving on this is really, it really feeds into the global policy and really brings us that recognition, and also, helps our EVP in driving some of our talent acquisition efforts. So this first piece was really to showcase what our D&I kind of, story is so far, and where we've been putting our efforts in terms of the way we've designed a strategy from, of course, a focus on representation, but at the same time ensuring that we have the inclusive policies and the culture to support the diversity that we need. And it's always a chicken and egg thing, because you would say that an inclusive culture would attract the diversity, and for the diversity you needed the inclusive culture, and we learn every day. For the rest of the presentation, I really wanted to focus on how we've been thinking and using more and more our flexibility at work principles to drive more a case for inclusion and belonging, and then really go into the third piece on new and smarter ways of working. So here, we, over the last, I think, year or so, we've really pushed this notion where we feel that the more flexible working conditions, and these could be across the way we frame our lead policies to the flexibility offers we have for an organizations, the more we normalize some of these flexibility offers for our people, the more we will have people feel included in the story and also feel engaged and productive and innovative. So some of this data that is here, we do not cite the sources on the slide, but they're all there, is basically, everybody appreciates flexibility. This notion of that flexibility is only women appreciate like flexibility because of certain things is a bit archaic now. But if you speak to somebody who's
Like me. I can say as a dad, I definitely love the flexibility.
Yeah, so it's like, and everybody needs it and wants it, yeah. And we do find that, of course, these are just some data points about employees valuing flexibility, and you also see that there is sometimes not that much uptake for it, but most and more people are, and this present crisis is just illustrating that, like, people do appreciate the flexibility in their lives. We also see that it has quite an impact on gender equality, because when you normalize some of these flexibility, that it's okay to leave at a certain time, it's okay to step out and take some time off to attend something that your kids are having, and when everybody is doing it, it becomes normal, and it does have an impact on gender equality. And the studies have shown that, of course, impacts also how women are paid, but also how they get their merit increases in an organization. And of course, the impact on work-life balance, integration, all of it is evident. Yeah, of course, the more flexibility you have in your life, you can toggle your day, according to needs of how you want to do it. So, all the positive benefits of doing that. So here, just wanted to give you a glimpse on how we use some of these flexibility principles to drive some of the initiatives that we put in Schneider Electric. And the first is the example of a global family leave policy. And this we brought out 3 years ago. We, of course, each of our countries had some paternity, maternity leave policies, different form of policies, but we didn't have a global policy existing at Schneider Electric. And we took the care this time, when we were designing this 3 years ago, to really make it a very inclusive policy in the way we defined leave. So it was not only a parental policy, but really acknowledged the need for taking leave for different reasons. It could be to take care of, somebody in your family who was sick, a family member, of a bereavement. We also made a very inclusive definition of family, recognizing that family setups are very different today, and were not only in the traditional sense of what one would have perceived a family to be, and also made it very equitable, because this policy is now the minimum standards at Schneider Electric. So no matter where you work in the world, in which country you work, you have access to this minimum level of benefit. And today I must say that we are nearly at 100% completion within 3 years of launching this policy. The other piece I would like to focus on is really what we call our global flexibility principles. And this is really about, we took the time and space to carve at the global level certain things that we felt important were needed for people to feel that they had this, were able to manage their own life and work. And so we had a list of principles where it could be around telecommuting, flexible holidays, volunteering, part-time. And we listed about, I think there were about 7 to 8 principles where we said, okay, this is what we enable as a company globally. And then it really depended country to country, where they took up, part or all of these principles and implemented them at the local level. So it was really kind of a global and local adaptation. And this is all, I must say, pre-COVID. Yeah, so this is the time when we were all still talking about, this kind of friction between the employees and organizations, issues of trust, issues of, is this really needed? But all of us really truly believing in the fact that flexibility was something that would, benefit all. So here I just wanted to, illustrate that when we learned that when we put in place any policy which is inclusive in nature, while the primary target might have been a particular diversity, it really creates a ripple effect on everybody. So it makes it better for the entire organization. And that was quite a good learning, because it helped us shape and drive future policies. So here is where I said I would take a little bit of a deeper dive, because if you look at it from a policy framework, from a intention framework, we were at quite a good place, because we were moving in the right direction with a lot of our inclusion policies, behaviors, and also enabling this whole flexible work environment at Schneider. At the same time, from a culture and mindset piece, and also if you remember I said we're a growing technology company. So we were also seeing a shift in our business model, people having to really come to terms with the more digital nature of the world. Our leaders, our managers, our people on the ground really feeling the fact that they were living in this 24 connected world, pressures of business. And I don't think it's unique to Schneider. I think a lot of us have felt that no matter where we work. And at the same time, a culture and mindset where people really questioned if they were empowered to take some of these decisions for themselves. Yes, was there trust in the system? And people reporting kind of, let's say, increasing levels of stress, burnout, anxiety. So, looking at our employee engagement surveys and seeing some of this feedback come in, we were also thinking about, what is it that we can kind of, how do we enable this for people from a more mindset perspective? And we came up with this, I don't want to even call it a concept, but more of a philosophy about free up your energy. And freeing up your energy really was this whole notion of the fact that as our lives and as our business is getting more demanding and more connected, we all need to figure out smarter ways of working to make sure that, we are channelizing our energies into things that really matter for us.
I love this, Sonali. Again, highlighted by where we are right now.
Exactly, and this is what I want to exemplify, because this is even before COVID.
Yeah, exactly.
And we were already in this space and this mindset about really feeling very anxious about stuff that was going on, and how do we make it all work, and how do we blend life and work and all of it. So some of the things that really came across was, like I said, this reconciling this reality of being constantly connected, and then we were also seeing that being a global organization working across these different time zones, was really causing people to feel, like there were health issues coming out, burnout issues. And this notion of, do we have the permission? Do we have the permission to say no? Do we have all of this? So leaders being able to set that tone, create that psychologically safe environment where people felt that they had more, let's say, control of their own lives and their own agendas. And the fact that they had the right to put some of these boundaries to preserve their own well-being. And so we really actually, how we did it was we kind of brought out this whole white paper, which we call the new and smarter ways of working. And it was really about how we said, okay, what's the case for change? And what is it that we as an organization believe in and want people to be doing? So what is your role as a leader? What is your role as an employee? And we put together a very simple, it was very simplistic, and e-learning. It's like a 25-minute e-learning, which really, talked a bit about, first, of course, the case for change, why we wanted people to work in this new and smarter ways of working, but very simple, I would dare say, tips and tricks about, freeing up your energy. How to be smarter about emails, smarter about meetings. That time, even though we were quite, let's say, we won't say we were fully remote, but, working from home in certain geographies is quite normal. So we were already in this hybrid model of some of our employees working from home, some not, but really preserving that need for social connection also being very important, and leading people through this training, just to make sure that people had a little bit more control over their lives. And while I'm talking through this is like what we needed people to do was also go on our internal page and make some of these commitments. Yeah, to say that, okay, they took this e-learning and what were they going to do to make their daily lives better. And to be quite honest,
it's just out of curiosity, is that white paper you mentioned available online, or is that just internally?
I think it is still an internal white paper.
Okay. I'm sure many people are going to message me saying, can we get hold of that? So if you ever release it online, please let me know.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, I can rejig my head to see if we could publish it. I don't see any reason why we would not be able to share it.
That'd be very helpful for organizations.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Yes. So, yeah, and as we were, but honestly, when we were putting this together, and I remember having these discussions with my manager and my team, we were like, is this too simple? Like, what were we telling people? We were telling people how to really safeguard their agendas. Yeah, think about being smart about the way, they did their meetings, and maybe saying no to meetings, and we were really, and the feedback has been so phenomenal, because I don't know if it's just this aha moment, but people have just said, okay, I can do this. Like, I have the permission, and like, okay, yes, I'm going to go offline and work for 3 hours. And And we've been getting quite a great feedback from people on it. And this is the time, as soon as actually the week we launched this training is when I think China was already in lockdown, but the rest of the world started going, in lockdown during the COVID crisis. So the training was probably even more relevant, so Sunday became, like you said, before this, it was like, how do we get people to take this? But now it was like, it became the most relevant thing to do. But at the same time, we realized that we had to kind of support it a little bit more by, additional resources. So really giving people space to also share some of their concerns as they were going through this crisis, but also giving them the fact that we went more remote, everybody went remote, the ones who could in our organization, because a large part of our organization also, needs to go into the factories and our sales and our services teams. But for the people who could work from home, we were saying, okay, this is also the time that you have to be very careful about being inclusive as leaders, as team members, and how can we support you in doing that? Where is bias going to crop up when you are more virtual? So we kind of added it a bit to this training that already was there. But, and I think you and I just had this conversation before we came into this presentation, is that all of us, no matter which organizations we work for, are really thinking about what will work look like in the new normal? Yeah. So where is this all going? Will people feel safe enough to come back to work? So while we are thinking about this, we're also like now looking at what is the future of work going to be in the COVID world. And we are calling it the COVID world and not the post-COVID world, because we are like, okay, this is a reality. Yeah, this virus, no matter till a vaccine comes, is quite a reality.
Yeah. Sonali, before we jump into that, could you share some, we had a few people ask in the comments, could you share some examples of the feedback you've gotten in terms of the flexible setup, the model, the tools, the obviously the white paper, of how people are using that to actually, and how it's impacted some people?
Yeah, sure. So I think the first impact, I think what we really got from people was, it was the permission. Yeah, the permission to have these conversations that, that I can take certain steps to kind of preserve what I'm doing. And it's fine. It's okay for me to say no.
They're not going to get exactly. They're not going to get reprimanded for
exactly. And the second piece was also some of, I guess, skepticism. Skepticism because they were like, yeah, sure, but I don't see anybody doing this, or my manager doesn't do this. Yeah, my manager needs me to be at work, physically at work, or and here, what we realized quickly was that we needed more and more leaders to come up and share how they were freeing up energy. So what were the steps they were doing personally? So, for the individual selves, and how they were enabling that as a team. So more and more leaders coming and giving those testimonies through videos and stuff like that. And it is work in progress, where I can't say that everyone's completely adapted to this, but the response has been overwhelmingly positive. And at least from the e-learning, I think one of the things that we're really getting from people is that it's simple. I'm thankful that you are talking about this, and the fact that now I can share more about this. Yeah, so I think it's really about enabling the fact that we've created a safe space for people to have this conversation.
Yeah, and then the benefits are really going to differ depending on the person.
Exactly.
So for one person, maybe I get more time to spend with my family, which would be me personally. That would be, or my wife right now. That's the huge benefit of being able to work remotely. She can spend more time with our little child. And maybe I don't know if she wants to spend more time with me, but she is spending more time with me.
No, it's true. And as you just pointed out, it will mean different things for different people. Yeah. And just to say that, okay, you could be, a early career talent working for us, not married, no kids, but you still want some time off in the afternoon, to go do, I don't know, whatever you want to do. And you should be allowed to do that as long as, it's the output of the work that you're producing. Yeah. So it's like how people use the flexibility is really up to them. And you can just provide the enablers and provide the environment, and then let people do what they need to do. And I think that requires a lot of trust in the system, and from both sides, trust from the organization to say, we trust you to do what you need to do, and also trust from the employee side to say, okay, I know I'm accountable for delivering, and I'll do it, and I'll do it in the way I think suits me best.
Yeah. And what you find, right, from my experience, is the more trust you give, the more engaged that employee becomes, the more output, the more it's the opposite of what many, the myth in the past of, they're just going to be lazy, not doing any work. We're seeing that right now. Everyone I speak to says to me, Chris, I'm working more now than ever, which sometimes has gone the opposite end of the spectrum and it's too far. And the other direction to put them back, it's almost unhealthy. So there's this kind of balance we need to find at the same time. But you can't punish a few. You can't punish the many for those few, 2 or 3, 4 people that may actually take advantage of it. But if you give everyone else the trust, the benefits that outweigh the negatives.
True, and I think it's also very cultural. Yeah, depending on which country you're in, you will have a different way of reacting to it, and also, sometimes it's also, like you said, some people are really taking to this more remote work from home, but for some people it's an issue, not because of trust issues, but because they find it unable how to set the boundaries in their own life. Yeah, so they feel that they're constantly connected, and how do I really step away from this thing and not constantly check my email, and I feel my work day is not ending, and I really want to go back to the physical office because then I'm there, and here I'm at home, and people want those very strict boundaries, and you should allow for that. Yeah, so you should really figure out, people work differently, and you should allow for those different forms of work. And I think this is what and these are the questions we are facing today, because in this new world we're seeing, of course, there's going to be kind of an increase, or at least we'll have to be very prepared to work more and more remotely, and the degree of remoteness will vary depending on your role, depending on your country, depending on where you are. But also, why were you going into work? Because I can tell you myself, like, there were days when I would go into an office and sit in an office, a closed office, from 7 a.m. till 4 p.m. on back-to-back calls. So why am I in that office?
Yeah.
So the really thing is, more and more, because of the more health and safety concerns, the reason we go into office will also be very, we'll have to think about why we are going into office, and that whole reason to go into office will be more of a curated experience. So it'll be really about, this is a time I really physically interact with my colleagues, my peers, and that social connection, which is extremely needed also for us to function effectively as an organization.
Mm-hmm.
And because all of this is going to have an impact, because we are, for large global organizations especially, when you look at the dispersed offices you have, and because of now also increased health and safety concerns, we do see that there's probably going to be a much more reduction in the real estate footprint, and the need for more and more of these flexible working arrangements, whether it's compressed work weeks, or really, you figure out how you want to do your day, or unlimited leave policies and things like that. But I think companies will have to provide much more in terms of these flexible or alternative work arrangements. So today, as we think through some of this, is really these are questions we're asking ourselves, and love to hear, even from you, you talk to so many people and so many companies, is really, what this new normal is going to look like as we return to work, but also how, what will leadership be in this new normal? Because, if you work more and more virtually in the organizations that can, it's much more flatter. Yeah, it's a very different way of working. The power structures that came from being in a physical office don't exist anymore in the virtual space. And then, what does culture mean? Yeah, when you're not coming together,
how do you build it?
How do you build it? What does it mean when a person joins your organization? What is their onboarding experience? Yeah, so all these questions, really thinking through some of this, and that's me. And I think just before I end,
I'll let you get back to the presentation.
Yeah. No, so this is just my last slide, and
sure.
Here, just like to share, in terms of, it's a quote that's very dear to my team, all of us who drive diversity and inclusion, but really it's about, really putting across that all of us, we're all different, and it's not that I'm different from you, but I am different like you. So just my last words for today. So I hope you found that useful.
Yeah, it's very, very useful. I appreciate you coming on to join us. And again, as I said, When I spoke with Shane, my co-founder, this morning, and I realized that you were on the show, and I saw the topic, I was like, wow, this is now more than ever is so important. But there is no one size fits all, and even organization by organization is going to change, depending on the environment you operate in, the industry, the culture, as well. But I think what's happened with COVID has really accelerated us forward.
Exactly.
I think we was always going here, but now it's we've leapfrogged. Even my wife's organization, I've said this many times, they're a finance business, 5,000 employees, and they were all like, you have to work in the office, it won't work remotely. But my wife just goes to the office and logs on a computer every single day with her employees, and within 2 weeks, they went from saying it's impossible to 2 weeks later, the entire business remote. So we know how to do it. We have the technology. We had the technology available. We have the systems, the tools. We're creating the processes. There are many companies. I had one on our summit yesterday who have always been remote, and they're the largest remote company in the world. They've never had an office before, and they were like, "Well, this is just normal for us to operate in this environment." And they were talking about how they onboard employees and make sure that every time they onboard an employee for the first 3 weeks, they're part of multiple calls where they're introduced to different partners throughout the organization. So they start to build those relationships and kind of become to mold and be part of that culture, but virtually as well, right? So I think we're already there. It's just going to be a big shift for many, many businesses, and it's a great opportunity as well. It's just a fantastic opportunity, and so many. As much as obviously there's a lot of negatives, of course, there's so many leaders out there like yourself that I'm speaking to are using this as a fantastic opportunity to make change, meaningful, lasting change. I can't remember the exact quote, but someone said to me, I think it was something along the lines of "never waste a good crisis."
Yes.
As well. So I thought that was pretty good. Whether that be your own personal learning and development, whether that be your business, there's always an opportunity there for growth. And I've been loving the post-traumatic growth is really what I'm trying to focus on now throughout all of this. But yeah, I appreciate you joining us. And if there's you've been through this entire journey, you're still on the journey, as we discussed. There is no end goal. It's a continuation. But for anyone else of your peers that are listening that are perhaps early on in the stages, if there's one parting piece of advice, what would that be for them? And then where's the best place for everyone to connect with you if they want to reach out and say hello?
Well, the latter is, of course, there's LinkedIn, so feel free to reach out. I think that's the simplest way to do it. And I don't know about the advice. Like I said, especially in this space, there are no easy answers. And I think the focus should just be about moving in the right direction. And every day you get a little bit better at that. And I think that's just it. Just keep the focus and keep going. That's all.
But I love the idea of that white paper. So if for somehow we can get hold of that, I think
we'll just do a quick scan and see if you find it useful. We'll see how we can make it.
Yeah, I think every organization I'm speaking to are kind of creating their own equivalent of what you've put in place as we speak, as they begin to understand how this new world we're operating is going to look like as well. But it seems that you're already kind of a bit of a step ahead and kind of seen this coming, and now it's just sort of accelerated as we discussed as well. So
yeah, I think, like I said, I don't think what people were feeling on a daily basis from just work and and what all comes along with it is very different. The how we work has kind of changed a bit, and how permanent that change is, we don't know yet. So it's really about being agile, adapting to the new normal, and making the best of it.
Yeah. It's also highlighted. We always talk about work-life balance. I've always more loved the work-life blend approach or terminology, and that's also something which has been highlighted throughout this. Is now we're actually at home doing work. We're seeing, wow, okay, how do we manage that outside of? Because the only thing separating us from that is an office space. Or the only thing that did separate us from that was a journey to the office and being in a physical environment. So many people are having to reassess, including myself, what that looks like. Even for our small startup that we're running, do we need to be in the office every day? Is that really necessary for us to do that? And when I sat down with a team and we said, why do we have an office? The answer was because that's what we've always had. And that's where I worked in my previous company. There was no strategic decision around why we have to be here every day so, as well, right? It's very outdated in that sense as well. So loads of opportunities come out of this. So I'm super excited, and I just hope organizations take the time to take advantage of that and come out of this on the other side even better than we were before. But thank you again for joining us. And yeah, there is no show without you guys, so I appreciate you coming on as always. I love speaking with you and the Schneider Electric team. It's you're like our best friends at the moment.
Very happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Well, enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
And spend some time with your daughter. Is it your daughter, son?
Daughter, yes.
Daughter, congratulations. 1 year old. Wow. Is she walking yet? Or what? Maybe wobbling?
She stands up and she tries, but not walking yet. No.
Oh, give it a few months. A few months, you can be like, oh no. Now it's funny because you can't wait until they start walking, and then when they start walking, you realize, oh, everything's a hazard. So now it's a whole other set of issues as well.
Already feeling that, yes.
Already feeling that. No problem. Well, look, I'll let you go. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you again soon. Okay?
Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.